So this was originally just going to be a quick video showing how the 100% speedrun could use 4 new glitches and skips to save whole minutes that I discovered for my all glitches video. But as I learned more and more about the speedrun, I realized, as usual with my videos, that there's just so many more interesting things to talk about. So in addition to discussing these new time saves, I'll be explaining the surprisingly numerous glitches and strategies that have already been used in speedruns, and proving how 100% isn't always winnable. But we only have so long on this earth, so let me explain what I'm doing resetting the title screen over and over. Starting a new game sends us into a cutscene, which we can ignore by pressing one of the default shortcuts left in the game, F2, which sends us back to the disclaimer, and then press continue. But we can make that reset a little quicker. There's an odd, inconsistent skip where if you click before the warning screen fully loads, it will instantly move to the title screen, ignoring the warning screen's fade in and fade out, saving a bit over a second. When we click continue, the title screen also has a fade out, but we can force it to finish the fade instantly by, and I'm not joking, pressing Alt F4. For whatever reason, games using ClickTeam Fusion's native out transitions used to have Alt F4 only kill the handler for the transition, but not the entire game, and it'll just continue like nothing happened. This only applied to out transitions, not in transitions, and also not the pseudo transitions that just use a fading black rectangle seen in later FNaF games. So we're finally into the action. Just kidding.
The first night is never usually that bad in any of the games.
So we can indeed just do nothing for the first 4 minutes. The thing most unique to this game, however, is that we can't just stall the beginning, we can also stall the end of the night. You see, Bonnie and Chica will only ever kill you if you shine light on them too close, or if you turn back from the bed, so we can just not do that. Foxy could also be handled easily with that in mind. You either never let him in the room, or close the closet door. But what about Freddy? I can't hear you asking. He'll kill you! Well, not really. On night 1, after completely clearing the Freddles, it'll take him more than 2.5 minutes to kill you automatically. So here, the only action you need to take for the entire night 1 is clear each hall and the bed at 4 AM. Of course, this works less and less on harder difficulties, but Freddy still takes a full 120 on night 4 and nearly a minute even on 2020-2020 mode. And so we have night 1 complete, and we can again use Alt F4 to skip the fading clock. Make sure you press space to start the minigame, but as I've discovered, holding space also consistently skips dialogue before it even shows up. But don't hold space at the end because instantly skipping the "tomorrow is another day" text soft locks you. Again, we can instantly skip a screen by clicking before the screen loads, in this case the minigame instructions. Fun with Plushtrap is pretty simple once you break it down. Plushtrap can move every 2 seconds, so in every even second of this timer, except night 4 where it's every odd. He'll first move quietly forward, then to the side, then forward, then to the side a second time, and pay attention for his last movement to the X. Congrats! We've now saved 2 hours or 2 minutes of the next night. But now we're on night 2, and we have to have an actual main night strategy. And it's, just don't let Foxy in. Really, that should be your main goal. When the difficulty comes from spinning plates, it's best to spin one fewer when you can, but let's see what that looks like in practice. If Foxy is still running around, you've got 3 plates to spin. Freddy, the glorified progress bar, and Bonnie and Chica running down each hallway. Importantly, Freddy, once you've left him alone too long, can kill you anywhere in the room. But outside of mistakes, Bonnie and Chica will only ever kill you when you're dealing with Freddy on the bed. So this allows for a more simplistic system, where the real thing you're optimizing is how often you can safely deal with Freddy. And you don't actually have to check on him that often, like pretty much a full in-game hour on earlier nights, down to still like 36 seconds later. Great. So when's a safe time to check? Well, simply whenever Bonnie or Chica won't kill you. How much time you've got will depend on how aggressive they happen to be at that very moment, but if you've used the flashlight or door to deal with both of them within around 15 seconds, you've nothing to fear. But we need to choose when we're dealing with Bonnie and Chica so Foxy can't get into the room and become glorified progress bar number 2. No one wants you here, Foxy. Okay, so these animatronics only move every 5 seconds. Of interest to us right now, Foxy moves to each side of the living room 90% of the time, and 10% of the time runs into the hall he's standing in front of. If he is in a hallway and you go to the opposite side of your room, he'll take that opportunity to run into your closet, and You know, it's actually not that bad as long as you've got a loop you can do consistently, but that can be harder. So what you'll want to do is keep track of which side he's on, and try to only go to that side. Once you've dealt with that animatronic, wait until you have an opportunity to get to the other side, and then deal with Freddy. Sometimes Foxy can be a bit stubborn, and you have to run your luck on the 10% chance that he gets in, but that's usually avoidable. I didn't have to in my run. Oh, and there's our alarm. We can just stall now. Yeah, just like most of the last entire 2 hours of the night. I told you Freddy was a pushover. Well, there is an AFK mechanic, so you have to run somewhere at least every 30 seconds, but that doesn't mean we have to do anything. This minigame has an odd quirk where if you just hold right, you can't consistently skip the dialogue, and I have absolutely no clue why. But if I do a quick stutter step, it does skip, so I do that and quickly change directions, and all goes smoothly. This time, Plush Trap took 16 seconds. Not bad. Night 3 is another of the same. Just don't let Foxy in and don't die. You're welcome. I should mention that it's possible for Bonnie to start the night at your door because of the random teleport mechanic used on nights 2 to 4, where Bonnie will teleport to your door at a random hour from 2 to 5. Because we skipped the first 2 hours using Plush Trap, Bonnie has a chance of immediately appearing and ruining your day if you're not paying attention. This minigame is quite straightforward. Hug the walls and know where you're going and you're good. This particular corner you can cut closer than you'd expect because our hitbox isn't a box, but 4 separate boxes that each only check one direction. So if you're moving perpendicular to a wall, it only checks the top hitbox, as opposed to when you're running into the wall. The only other useful instance of this is back in the first minigame, saving only 1/10 of a second each, but time is time. Especially with any percent. Aside from dying, these Plush Trap minigames are by far the largest potential time save or loss in the run. Plush Trap here happened to get to the X in only 12 seconds, the fastest possible, and with less than a 3% chance. However, taking into account all Plush Traps before Night 5, I only end up in the 81st percentile, which is good, but not exceptional. Night 4 is the last normal night of the game, but the strategy hasn't changed. It's not too much more difficult, and we're not letting Foxy into the closet. He must live his gay life in public. We, however, must cry alone in a storage closet. 18 seconds. Nice. And we arrive at the last night of the any percent category, featuring only Nightmare Fredbear. Really, all you need to be doing is run where he's going, make sure he's there, and close the door. If he laughs, make sure he's not still there, and check the better closet. Sometimes he'll laugh and not teleport, but you've got enough time to check every spot. He can't do real laugh teleports up to 4 times, though he'll often run out long before the end of the night, and sometimes not even do all 4. But this is still only Night 5, so we breeze through this, and arrive at our asterisk of the video title. The Speedrun.com leaderboard wants you to watch the cutscene until the bite of 87, which is not ideal when I want to run the whole game. Editor Taken here. Well, Editor Taken was already speaking to, but you know what I mean. I was going to go on a tangent about how, well, not unheard of, it is odd for the speedrun timing to include these cutscenes, but I've been told the leaderboard rules are planned to change about that. And this run would then retroactively become the world record in every category. No asterisk. It does mean I try to watch the Night 6 cutscene for no reason, but we lose these. Unfortunately, because there isn't a Plush Trap minigame, we must do a full 6 minutes of Night 6. We do get our first midnight Nightmare switch up, where Nightmare Fredbear appears at 4 AM. We're here at the right door though to prevent a particular glitch with Nightmare Chica, where even though she disappears, being replaced by Nightmare Fredbear, if her kill timer was high enough, she'll still be able to kill us later. All you need to do is shine a flashlight in her hall and you're good. And again, Nightmare Fredbear is a cakewalk, and we get our second star, again faster than world record. Finally, we have another new glitch to use, and it's Early Balloon Boy. Outside of the main 5 nights, Plush Trap doesn't actually skip time, but another minigame, Fun with Balloon Boy, does, though only an hour. However, clearly you can't play it yet. You unlock it after beating 2020-2020 mode. And that's true, but have you considered the enter button? Scott Cawthon didn't when he copy-pasted the code from the Fun with Plush Trap button, which does unlock after Night 6. We can't even normally click the Balloon Boy button until beating Night 7, so we're using the arrow keys here, but yeah, just press enter. Balloon Boy's minigame works pretty similarly to Plush Trap. It's the same map, he does the same movements, in fact, he's more likely to move, which is useful for saving time. The difference is that instead of having 2 seconds to catch Plush Trap on the X, you only have half a second. And I know that's still well within reaction times, and that's mostly true, but the actual footstep noise that you used to use to tell when he moves only actually plays after 0.4 seconds. Instead, you have to rely on the mechanic where he always speaks if he moves onto the X, which is not something you can rely on because he also randomly speaks every 2 seconds, 33% of the time, which is also exactly when he moves. And even then, one of the sounds only gives you half the time to react, and in trying not to misfire the flashlight with all this background noise, I failed. Okay, I'm just floundering. I managed to salvage it at the very end with 3 seconds left, but I actually ended up losing a couple seconds during this minigame, but hey, time saved for the next person. Anyways, fun fact, we can also click the start button without clicking Nightmare. The button is invisible, but still interactable. Night 7 is one of the hardest normal night sections in the game, so that hour skip is useful. But it also brings with it a terribly annoying Nightmare section. After Night 6, instead of Nightmare Fredbear, we just have Nightmare. Nightmare moves every 2 seconds and acts pretty much the same as Nightmare Fredbear, sometimes moving into the hall and just jump scaring you quicker, but from the hall, you'll always have enough time in any circumstance as long as you're paying attention. The problem comes when he laughs. This means he teleported to either your bed or closet, or he didn't do that. Like Nightmare Fredbear, he might sometimes laugh, but like, the non-teleporting type of laugh, one that's identical to any other. So now you have the closet, the bed, and the hall to check, and you don't have like 16 seconds to check them with Fredbear, you only have 11, which is simply not always enough time. So what do you do as a casual player? Nothing? Not really. In some situations you can check all of them, and if he's still moving around in the living room, he didn't actually teleport, and even if you guessed, you've still got a decent shot at surviving, but a decent shot is not good enough for us. So we turn to the timer. Literally. I'm looking at the timer the whole time. These fake laughs will only happen at 10-second intervals, so at 4:30 or 4:40, and happen 10% of the time, which means if it's a 10-second interval and we hear a laugh, there's about a 75% chance it's fake. It is complicated a little bit by the fact that this 10-second interval pauses while Nightmare's on the bed, and only the bed? But if you're looking at the timer, you can usually figure out how long he's been there and offset which number you cast out on. Another night, another record. And hopefully this time we don't mess up BB. Nice. To get to our secret Night 8 2020-2020 mode, you have to actually type it out. But when pressing in the buttons, make sure you're not pressing both 2 and 0. In previous versions you could just hold 2 and 0 at the same time, but a patch now makes it so it's weirdly hard to type. Click the invisible start again, and we dive into actually one of the easiest normal night sections. We can use an ingenious strat discovered by 8braid8, which abuses the fact that the animatronics with max AI levels are guaranteed to move every 5 seconds. Let's pull this map apart. Bonnie and Chica have essentially identical places they move. After the first movement at 5 seconds, there's only one place they'll be. After the second movement at 10 seconds, they'll move to either adjacent room. At the third movement, animatronics in the hall won't leave the hall, so they'll only be in those 2 rooms, and it just keeps repeating. If you don't stall them, then every 10 seconds, it's impossible for either Bonnie or Chica to be at your door. That means we can just use our flashlight every time, sending them back to the start, and keeping that pattern intact. All you need to do is every 10 seconds, first make sure Foxy didn't run down a hall, and then scare away one of them, come back, and remove any frettles. Then, at the next 10 seconds, make sure Foxy didn't run down a hall, and then scare away the other, and repeat until you can stall out for Nightmare to appear. If Foxy does run down the other side hall, chase him away and wait until the next 10-second check. Though in the unlikely scenario he does it more than twice in a row, you'll have to start foregoing removing the frettles. And that's it for the strategy. It's very simple, and the odds across the whole night that Foxy runs into the same hall enough times in a row to kill us are literally 1 in 98 million, so I think we can consider the strategy pretty safe. Though again, we do unfortunately have to face Nightmare, as always. And as if to demonstrate how evil he is, he pulls out a legendary 10-second interval real laugh. I try to clear the door, to no avail because he's not actually there, check the bed, and desperately run to the closet, getting there with a fraction of a second to spare. And the only reason I lived was because I was lucky enough for the 3-second clear intervals to line up with the death time, and give me the full 11 seconds to check everything. But a fraction of a second is more than 0, and the run's alive. And for some, that was the end of the game because that's 4 stars. But we can't forget the Halloween update. Yeah, apparently the Halloween update wasn't just spooky scary Mr. Jack-o'-lantern. V1.1 also brought us challenges and challenge stars. 1 for each challenge and 2 more for the 2 hardest combinations. But you do them blind. I start with the harder blind mode Mad Freddy insta Foxy, and we'll get to blind mode All Nightmare soon enough. Unfortunately, not great to watch, but thankfully you were watching explanations this whole time anyway, so let's talk some real strategy. The challenges aren't done on 2020-2020, so unfortunately we don't get to do that easy strat. We're instead doing AEZ strat. This strat is not guaranteed, though after getting in touch with Braden we have discovered a guaranteed strategy dubbed AEZ 2.0. So what is AEZ? Simply, it's a 40-second loop that gets us to deal with Bonnie, Chica, Freddy, and Foxy. We time the action so that there's no opportunity for any of them to kill us, so with Freddy there's never more than 22 seconds since we last shined the bed, so he'll never kill us. And Foxy, we always close the closet for enough time so that by the next 40 seconds, he's back at the same progress. Chica also doesn't have enough time to threaten us, but unfortunately, if Bonnie is in the right circumstance, if he immediately moves towards us twice and then fails to move away from the door, we'll die. This is more of an issue with the original AEZ strat, which only has about a 76% win rate, but shifting the strategy over by 5 seconds, I call AEZ 1.5, gives Bonnie an additional opportunity to leave the door, increasing her win rate to about 92%. At that point, the risk of messing up the more difficult AEZ 2.0 while blind isn't worth doing over the pretty consistent 1.5. So let me show you what the strategy is exactly. Our loop starts with us double closing the left door, which is an exploit that brings animatronics anywhere in the hall to the door and still lets us clear them. And we keep the door closed until the next 5-second interval so that the animatronics don't move. Then we move to Chica and double close that door and keep it closed to hopefully stop Bonnie from getting too far. Then deal with the Freddles, close the closet for 8 seconds, and deal with the Freddles again, and repeat until 4 AM. That gets us to Nightmare, who can't stop faking us out. His first real laugh of the night just happens to land on a 10-second interval. Thankfully I was already pretty close to the door, and as long as I didn't get lost in blind mode, I had it in the bag. Well, until his second real laugh of the night also happened to land on a 10-second interval. I happened to have the door closed around 0.2 seconds before the clear interval, so I was able to identify that it was real 3 seconds sooner, and survive regardless of whether it was to the bed or closet. And to round out our speedrun, we use our final new exploit, All Nightmare Plush Trap. You see, we're supposed to use Balloon Boy to skip time in later nights, but he only skips 1 hour. Plush Trap skips 2! But only on nights 1 to 5, and the challenges only give stars on nights 7 or 8. It says right there. And that's true, but the All Nightmare challenge has an odd quirk where it turns any night you start into night 8, while still letting Plush Trap skip the 2 hours. Now I've talked about Nightmare and how you're just kinda gambling sometimes, but for this challenge, you are, and there's no way around it. While for previous Nights' Nightmare section, if you were a robot with 0 reaction time and perfect execution, you could always beat FNaF 4 and almost every single challenge in 100%. But for blind mode All Nightmare, that is not the case. While you might initially be surprised that the game's even beatable without sight, you learn that pretty much every action comes with an audio cue, and that's how you can navigate somewhat seamlessly through the game without the visuals. There is one key thing you miss, and that's seeing in the halls. When you shine the flashlight on Nightmare when he's on the bed or behind the closet, you hear this. But not in the hallway, and there's no way to tell if he's there aside from trying to clear him. So that means if there's a 10-second interval laugh, and it's ambiguous if it's real or not, you need to check all 3 hiding spots. But instead of just using the flashlight to check the door, you must hold the door for an amount of time to attempt to clear him, and that amount of time just barely makes it possible for Nightmare to force you into a situation that you must guess in. Let's prove it. Just as some basic facts, it takes more than 4 seconds to get from a door to closing the closet, and to get from one door to closing the other door. Our situation is where Nightmare has been in both hallways. He previously laughed to the closet, and now it's right before 124, and he's on the right side of the living room. This situation is always possible, and there's no way you could stop Nightmare from doing any of these things. There are 2 scenarios. 1, you're at the right door, and 2, if you're anywhere else. If you are at his door, at 124, he moves to the other side, and into that hall at 126. Given that it takes at least 4 seconds to close the other side's door, and that takes only 8 seconds for you to die, you can only clear the door at 130 or 133. If you clear the door at 130, Nightmare can laugh at the same time, and given that it's a 10-second interval and we don't hear any other movement, we can't be sure whether it's a real laugh or not, so we must cover the door, the bed, and the closet. We can clear the door at 136 if we don't check the bed or closet, but if the laugh were real and he teleported to the closet, we'd die at 141, and we would have had to clear the closet at 139. We can also clear the door at 139, with time to check the bed, but again, we can't deal with Nightmare if he went to the closet we didn't check. Therefore, we had to guess in this route. Alternatively, if we choose to close the door at 133, Nightmare can then move into the right hall at 134, at which the only possible time we can clear him is 139. Then he can laugh at 140, which again, as a 10-second interval means we have to check the spots and door, and the only time we can clear the hall is 145. We don't have time to clear the closet before or after. So clearly, in either case, if we were at the right door, we had to guess, and it's not guaranteed we survive. So let's check the case where we're anywhere else. In that case, at 124, Nightmare moves into the right hall, and we can clear the door at 127 or 130. If we try to clear the door at 130, we run into the same situation as the previous time, we must guess. And if we clear the door at 127, he can move into the left hall at 128, and the only time we can clear the door is at 133. This is the exact same situation as the previously discussed one. We cannot guarantee we survive. So, given that our beginning scenario is always possible, and no matter our response, clearing the door at 127, 130, or being in a different spot, there's always a scenario in which we die. So, we have proven that FNaF 4 100% cannot be beaten 100% of the time. This scenario is exceedingly rare and only just barely works because of a glitch in the game. In multiple situations in these scenarios, including the one at the end, we're not able to clear animatronics on the same second they would kill us. This is not intentional, but is the reason I have the stipulation that Nightmare has already teleported to the closet and been in each hallway. The error with the timers offsets them by a frame each time an enemy is cleared from an area. At the end of that second scenario, where you have to clear the closet at 151, we do actually clear the closet at 151, but Nightmare kills you at 150.98, the frame before. So yeah, this series of events is cutting it close, but it is possible in the final release of the game. Regardless of the rarity, this is still of note because this is the only case of a challenge having undefendable RNG outside of Pizzeria Simulator and Ultimate Custom Nights 5020, even including typical glitches. While one might expect all this discussion to lead into a super difficult night with Nightmare to end it off, it wasn't difficult. No 10-second real laughs, no having to calculate offsets, and despite all Nightmare mode giving Nightmare the whole 4 minutes for Nightmare to run around, he's still only allowed to laugh teleport twice, which doesn't make it that much harder than a regular Nightmare section. Given I was kinda shaking that last 10 minutes, I'm very glad Nightmare didn't hate me that night, and I pulled it through and achieved the first known deathless 100% run on PC, clocking in at a quick and hasty 55 minutes and 34 seconds. And that's my run. It gets through every category, any percent, 2-star, 3-star, 4-star, and 100% without deaths, and faster than anyone has done it before, and including every new glitch and optimization that I could theory craft. But I don't think I can just wrap this video up without going over what our limits for this speedrun could be. There is actually a decent amount left on the table. Not watching that 36-second cutscene would help, and adding on not nearly missing the first BB minigame would combine save nearly a minute by the end. A few seconds could definitely be saved on menuing, though the time saves shown here are for if you were to click each button in a singular frame. And technically, you could save some fractions of a second in the minigames if you press a direction for 5 frames, which lets you immediately move around corners, but it's not really worth the effort outside of a task. But the real theory time is in Dream Luck, Plush Trap, and BB. If you can pull off the 1 in 25 billion, and knowingly, because you're going to have to shine the flashlight before you even know if they move, you can shave off a whole minute by the end. However, in terms of realistic future records, I think I wouldn't expect too much quicker than a 2640 any percent, and similar times in longer categories. No one's going to get perfect luck, and saving time with Plush Trap and BB literally gets exponentially harder as you get faster and faster. But I think that's all I can say about this speedrun. Thanks to Brayden and Insta for help with the run, and Fulmic, Universe, and Reviewers for help on the video. And of course, thanks to my ever-patient Taken++ YouTube members, Nico Frost, Linkboy Hendry, Flying Wolf Fox, Sir Dor, Madder Blockson, Arlo Squared, Liminal, Steve Cartoon 917, JV, Aurelian Soul, Crystal Jang, Nick9, and Exploding Bears. Remember, this is a video on YouTube, and you can interact with it by liking, commenting, and subscribing, and giving me money. I think that's the most important one.